Good morning, I'm Jill Valley. We know the coronavirus is changing our communities. So to keep you and your family informed as we move forward, we've launched a new series several weeks ago and we're calling it The Rebound. They are stories that will help all of us navigate these uncertain times. And every Sunday morning, we'll recap those rebound stories from across our state. Now, Governor Steve Bullock announced Tuesday Montana will start the next phase of its reopening from COVID-19 related shutdowns on June 1st. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has a closer look at what will change as Montana rebounds.
Governor Steve Bullock said Tuesday that Montana remains in a better position than many other states when it comes to COVID-19, and that allows leaders to begin planning for the second phase of reopening the state. Bullock says phase 2 will start on June 1st, just under 2 weeks away. That means restaurants, bars, breweries, and casinos can operate at 75% capacity, with social distancing still in place. Gatherings of up to 50 people will be allowed instead of 10. Even larger groups may be possible if distancing can be maintained and public health leaders agree. In addition, Bullock announced Montana will lift the 14-day quarantine that has been required for visitors coming from other states. He says the state will employ a robust public health plan in tourist communities, including surveillance testing for COVID-19. Bullock said the success of the reopening will depend on residents and visitors alike continuing to follow health precautions.
Look, every step that we take beyond a stay-at-home order and closing down all businesses indeed presents risk of more transmission. I certainly expect out-of-state visitors to take this seriously as Montanans have.
Earlier in the day, Bullock toured a state stockpile in Helena, which currently includes hundreds of thousands of N95 masks, other personal protective equipment, and COVID-19 testing kits. He said these supplies will be crucial as Montana continues to open up.
By and large, compared to where we were even 6 weeks ago, we're in a great position, and we're prepared to keep our healthcare providers and first responders equipped all throughout COVID-19.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Also in phase 2 of Governor Bullock's plans to reopen the state, he announced Yellowstone National Park through Montana's gates will be able to reopen June 1st. MTN's Annie Johnson talked to some business owners in West Yellowstone about what this means for their town.
Well, the news is out. Yellowstone National Park is able to reopen on June 1st. And for the local businesses here in West Yellowstone, that breathes life back into their businesses.
It's hard not to get emotional about it because it's our livelihood and it's the vacation experience and the things that Yellowstone brings to people.
Garrett Osler owns the oldest hotel in West Yellowstone, and he never experienced a drought like the one caused by the closure of the national park.
It's devastating to businesses, absolutely devastating. We only have customers when there's a reason for them to be here.
The park closed indefinitely in mid-March, and things around the neighboring town have been, well,
it's deader than we've ever seen.
When Yellowstone is closed, West Yellowstone is kind of like a ghost town.
Clyde Seeley owns the Three Bear Lodge in town, and he's looking forward to the reopening.
Starting later in the season, of course, is also difficult. But we'll adapt. We always do.
And while the businesses plan to adapt to the changes, it won't make up for the business loss.
We started with about 130 reservations in May at the beginning of March. And I have 2 guests that are going to come stay with us now.
Cancellations have been tremendous. Reservations are still coming in, but for later in the summer. But we've had a lot of cancellations.
And not being able to participate in the upcoming holiday hurts even more.
It'd be wonderful to be open this weekend for Memorial Day weekend.
Now business owners are waiting to hear back from the superintendent of the park on the official reopening date and time. Reporting in West Yellowstone, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
More than $1.7 billion in federally backed small business loans have been approved in Montana for 21,000 businesses hurt by the COVID-19 pandemic. The money is from the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. Montana banks are still accepting loan applications. Carrie Hegerberg of the Montana Bankers Association says rules on this program continue to be updated by the Small Business Administration, so it is important for businesses to check in with their banker on where things stand.
It's a very fluid program, very complicated in terms of how the rules are being modified as they go. So, rather than stay home and fret and stew and wonder how you're going to stand your business back up again, work closely with your banker because they can help in a lot of different ways.
The PPP loans are supposed to cover payroll and other expenses for businesses who've had to shut down or curtail operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. When our local economy started to plummet during COVID-19, the Missoula Downtown Foundation pivoted its fundraising efforts to focus on reducing the impact felt by local businesses. KPAX's Megan Mannering reports on how the foundation is getting Missoula up and running again.
We know that eventually downtown is going to open up and be vibrant once again, but a lot of these smaller businesses simply need a helping hand to get through these times.
For the Downtown Foundation, there's no better way to lend a helping hand than to hand deliver money to those who need it. So the foundation recently established the Downtown Missoula Business Support Fund, which will help local businesses cover the cost of things like rent, utilities, and other business-related expenses.
The fund started with a $25,000 donation from the foundation itself, and we reached out to all the banks in Missoula, and as you'd expect, every one of them said, yes, count us in, we're in.
Since creating the fund 3 weeks ago, the foundation has received enough donations to make deliveries to 43 different businesses and organizations downtown. One of those recipients is the Missoula Children's Theater, a staple of downtown Missoula and an organization that can use all the financial support it can get right now.
The financial hit has been astounding, shall I say. In mid-March, we had to choose to cancel the rest of our winter-spring touring program, and that, along with canceling a couple of local productions and postponing a major production, was about a $2 to $2.5 million loss.
PR Director Terry Elander says their grant will soften the blow to their budget and pay for essential materials like cleaning supplies. But more than the financial support, Elander says receiving the grant speaks to the community's commitment to helping each other out through hard times.
As a native Montanan, I'm constantly impressed and in awe of how we stick together as a community.
Slowly but surely, the Downtown Foundation is helping to rebuild the economy and vibrancy of downtown Missoula, one hand-delivered check at a time. In Missoula, Megan Mannering, MTN News.
The foundation is still taking donations for the support fund and applications for businesses and organizations, and you can find those details at MissoulaDowntown.com. You know, a lot of us aren't spending as much money on gas or extras these days as the pandemic continues to stress the economy. I conducted a Facebook Live interview last week with a consumer credit counseling expert to get some advice on how to handle our money in a global pandemic so we're not caught empty-handed.
Joining me now is Tom Jacobson. He is the Executive Director of Rural Dynamics. Now, Rural Dynamics is affiliated with a company called GreenPath, and the mission is to help families and individuals achieve financial security and pursue the economic opportunities that they would like, and helps manage debt. It was actually formed in 1968 when it was called Consumer Credit Counseling, which may be a name more people are familiar with. And Tom is joining me now from Great Falls. You are a state senator. You own several businesses and rental properties in addition to running the nonprofit. So I feel you've got a pretty good snapshot of how people are feeling out there and what their personal finance concerns might be. So thanks for being with us today. I guess we're going to be talking about some money. How are you doing?
I'm good, Jill. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're really interested to hear what you have to say. You know, we're seeing unprecedented turmoil in the U.S. economy, job losses in Montana. Some are permanent, some are temporary. Are you having people call your office with their personal finance concerns, and what kinds of questions do they have for you these days?
Yeah, we are having several people call. There's a lot of concern, obviously, about an uncertain future, wanting to know those folks with credit card debt. What are some ways that they can address that? And we also have folks calling in looking for, what are other options they have for their mortgage, student loans, and basic budget help. Yeah, so we have seen a bit of an uptick since March.
People are starting to pay attention to these things, I imagine. And if you're watching right now on Facebook and you have a question for Tom, go ahead and type it in and we'll see if he can answer it for you, because that's what we're here to help answer your questions. Now, a lot of us remember that big recession of 2008 when people were really concerned about their finances. Everybody backed off a little bit. Is that what we're going to be seeing, something similar now? I guess we don't really know what's going to happen with our economy and this pandemic, if we're going to see emergence of the virus. So is there a difference between then and what we could be seeing now?
I think the biggest, difference had to do with the collapse of the banking and the mortgage mortgage accounts. We had so many people at the time that had, predatory loans, or they had, they had some subprime loans in their property, and they really weren't set up. There was that big push. So the big focus at that time was foreclosure prevention, loss mitigation. And not to say that we aren't addressing that now. There is definitely, some concern out there about, people losing their homes. But really, I think the issue we see now, especially with the unemployment and that uncertainty of cash flow. So what our folks are dealing with are just, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay my rent? As opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my home. So there are some nuances that are slightly different this time around.
When people lose their job and they need to buy groceries, they often turn to credit cards. Is there a danger there of people relying on that too much? And as those debts start to rise, should you look at the deferred payments? Should you look for maybe a lower interest credit card, or what's the advice there?
I think that if you're concerned about, some of the basic needs, all of this is really a cash flow issue. So like right now, folks, a lot of those folks are getting that $1,200 stimulus check. So what do we do with that? And, my advice would be to hold on to that as long as you can. Use that for those basic expenses and those things that, right now we know that, there can be some rent forbearance. There can be mortgage forbearance, just calling your creditors, calling your mortgager, talking to your landlord. There's assistance through the state right now for housing assistance, for rental assistance. So there are a lot of different opportunities out there to deal with those short-term things. The one thing that that you can't get a forbearance on really are your groceries or your gas. So use those dollars very smartly. If you get that $1,200 check and you're like, geez, I really want to pay off this credit card right now, maybe now is not the time to pay that off. And rather, hold that $1,200. And if you need to, ask for some delays on those payments, talk to your creditors. And, but try to hold on to that, especially if your future is uncertain. And especially if you don't know, if you're going to have a job or, when you're going to go back to work. And, 2 or 3 months and we're back to work and things are going well, then we can, start addressing that. But I would hold on to some of that cash and leverage the opportunities that are out there right now before I started spending that down.
Okay. Now, we do have some state programs and federal programs that people can look to help when it comes to paying their rent or their mortgage. Are you advising your clients to look into some of those, even though for some of them it might be the first time they've ever had to ask for any kind of help, and that might be difficult to even know where to look?
And I think that's one of the things about Montanans that we're a proud bunch. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to ask for public assistance. Right now, if you've got problems with your mortgage or you're paying your rent, if you can go to housing.mt.gov, there are resources there in the recent stimulus, the state stimulus package that they received, that they are using to help folks get through this time. So yeah, I guess what I would recommend is reaching out, and it's not a prideful thing. When you need the help, that's what the help is there for. And that's what we pay into for all this time, and those times when we do need to reach back and take that back. So yeah, definitely. And our folks here at RDI, and we can definitely point you in the right direction and help you navigate those state systems as well.
So talking about some of the things Tom told us, you should make a budget right now. If you can, save your stimulus to try to keep cash on hand. Don't ignore any mounting debt problems. Contact your credit card company or even your mortgage lender or your landlord if you're having trouble making your payments. And do not be afraid to ask for help, either through a nonprofit credit counselor or even using some of the relief programs offered by the state. Now, many parents are now looking for summer childcare options, and for years, summer camps have been the go-to option for many. But COVID-19 restrictions have created uncertainty, from cancellations to new regulations. Our Rebound reporting team of Andy Curtis and John Riley looked at the changes and what families should consider when looking for the right summer camp.
Fridge calendars are looking pretty bare as many parents try to figure out just what's available for their children this summer.
Typically by end of March, I actually have an entire spreadsheet with every week lined out where they're going to be, trying to mix up a variety of camps for them to go to, like sports camps or educational camps. And right now that spreadsheet is empty.
Although there have been summer camps and programs canceled, there are still many organizations moving forward with their summer camp plans. Exploration Works here in Helena has been working with County Public Health to safely provide their camps. The Science Museum has developed a plan that will change depending on which phase of reopening the state is in, and are offering liberal refund options to encourage parents to keep kids home if they're not feeling well.
Most parents are just like, please tell me this is happening. So we're happy to say, yes, we're moving forward with it, and it gives the kids something to look forward to, and parents maybe some relief.
After homeschooling for the past 2 months, the services provided by these camps is needed now more than ever. For the kids, it's a great way to socialize while learning some new skills. And for the parents, it provides a much needed break.
Personally, I just got the news last week that the summer program that I was going to have my kids participate in for the most part of the summer was canceled. And so now I'm scrambling, just like all the other parents, to try to find different activities and childcare in a safe way. And so I'm glad because my kids are coming to camps for a few weeks here at XWorks, but piecing the rest of the summer together is hard.
There's just this constant unknown out there right now. And I feel like we just have to be flexible and patient and have grace, and maybe sign them up for some things that we know they would be interested in, and just hope that it's all going to work out and maybe I get a little peace and quiet.
Reporting from Helena, MTN News team of Andy Curtis and John Riley.
All right, here's a rundown of some things to keep in mind when selecting a summer camp for your child this year. Double check the refund policy and whether you have to opt in for cancellation protection. Look at the instructor to child ratio and whether there are additional safety requirements such as wearing a mask that might be required. As venues shut down due to coronavirus, musicians lost thousands of dollars in work across the state. MTN's Marin Sue tells us about a woman who started a musicians relief fund, bringing hope to those struggling during this time.
I've lost pretty much my entire year of work. I can't go to colleges and teach.
Musicians like Erica Von Kleist are out thousands of dollars since coronavirus hit. Almost every single form of her income has been affected due to the virus.
Local gigs are pretty much nil. Private lessons, parents aren't bringing their kids to my house for lessons, and it's really hard to teach online.
Von Kleist started a musicians relief fund. The fund is designed to help Montana-based musicians who make 51% or more of their income through music. She says in its 6 weeks, it's already benefited 10 musicians like Ross Strausser.
I think paying rent, that's been kind of the big expense that I've had to deal with since this whole thing hit. Rent and groceries.
Strausser just graduated from the University of Montana with degrees in jazz studies and instrumental performance. He says his main sources of income, like music lessons and performances, have all been canceled.
When it's all said and done, definitely I'm going to be out thousands of dollars.
Von Kleist hopes this will all be over soon, but for now she hopes this relief fund will help those struggling.
What we do is also who we are. We're musicians. We've dedicated our entire lives to perfecting and never perfecting what we do on what our given instrument, and bringing it to the masses. I mean, that's what brings us the most joy. And to not be able to do that right now is just like, we're all in a holding pattern.
Strausser says he plans on attending graduate school in the fall and hopes by then all of his classes will be taught face-to-face. In Whitefish, Marin Stew, MTN News.
Here is a recap on how you can apply for funding. You qualify for the Musicians Relief Fund if you live in Montana and make more than 51% of your income from music. As part of our Rebound report, we are connecting you to professionals who can help navigate these uncertain and frustrating times. And earlier this week, I spoke with Dr. Robert Valine, a clinical neuropsychologist in Missoula, about the emotional impacts of this COVID-19 pandemic.
What is the best way to deal with anxiety? And you gave us a nice list, 10 simple steps to reduce stress and anxiety, which would be nice. Let's take a look at the first 3. I know James is in the back working on this for us, and pop it up, and we can talk a little bit about 10 things that we can do. So take it away.
Yeah, well, very simply, first of all, we have to balance how much we immerse ourselves in the stressors here. It's easy to get caught on Facebook or electronic media, looking at all of this. Give yourself permission to take a step back, take a break, and do some other things. Read, reflect, journal. I'm encouraging people to really journal because in many ways we're watching one of the most wonderful and novel social experiments we've ever seen in the history of mankind, because nobody's ever done this before. So won't it be fascinating to look back on this 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now and kind of see how we're going through this, because this is novel. So take a break and don't let other people's anxieties become yours, because it's too easy to turn on a Google page and now start worrying about what's happening in Italy or England. And it's not that we shouldn't be unconcerned, but there's a point in time where we should step back from that. And, our grandparents were right. There are some things that are real simple. Exercise. The research here are very, very clear. Exercise is good for us. It not only makes us feel better, it strengthens our brain and it strengthens our body. And then smile and laugh. Our brains and our emotions and facial expressions are all interconnected. You smile and laugh, you're going to feel better. Your stress is going to be less problematic. Your anxiety is going to go down, but you're also going to be helping other people in that feedback loop. Can often be very, very helpful as well.
Can I ask you one quick thing? So my dad, he's 80 years old. He lives in a different state, had more COVID cases. He went to the store recently with a mask on. And again, he's 80, was ridiculed by somebody saying, oh, you're just feeding into the pandemic and you're listening to the fake news. And I thought that was hostile. Yet you go to the store and you don't wear a mask, and then people stare at you like you are the source of the problem. So just going to the store to get some milk has turned into this battle between those who want the mask and those who don't want the mask. And I just want some groceries. How do you negotiate your way through the world when you've got, it's kind of a polarizing issue at this point when it comes to mask, not wearing a mask. Is it real? Is it not real? It's confusing, doctor.
Yes, we are a wonderfully complex, confusing people. Sometimes we like to find what is different about somebody and we key in on that. And one of the things we need to look at here is we all need to make our own decisions. We have some guidance, but depending on circumstances and situations, there's a lot of room to move there. And ultimately, we're responsible for making decisions that are reasonable, rational, and good for us. And that may not be the same choice that somebody else makes, but we're only responsible for our decision. And, we had this all the way back into kindergarten and preschool, right? A kid could wear a shirt they loved and they got ridiculed for it. We don't really grow up as adults. We just get older, and we can sometimes still fight over the same thing. So I just encourage us all to take our own personal responsibility and be thoughtful about what we do.
And be nice. People are so angry. People are so angry. And I think that's when you say take a step back from social media. That is important because there's just such anger and such conflict that it just makes the stress worse. Let's go back to a couple of our 10 steps. We did the take a break from the stressor, social media, exercise, smile and laugh. And then here we are to the next 3. Let's talk about that. Being grateful. What's that about?
Grateful. Well, and that really feeds beautifully into what you just mentioned, Jill. There's a lot of anger for a lot of different reasons here. And we can all find things about which to be angry. What we often forget is how many things we also have to be grateful for. Even when things aren't great, there are a lot of things that we still have, particularly those of us in the United States. But even in the worst of situations here, we can find things about which to be grateful. And being grateful not only reduces our stress, but also reduces other people's stress as well. It's hard to be angry with somebody who is being nice to you. So I encourage people that, like exercise, this not only changes your experience, but it changes your brain. Do this by writing notes to people. Well, say thank you to the clerk at Walmart. I was at Walmart a while back, and a clerk was being yelled at by somebody because they weren't allowed to buy enough milk. Well, the clerk really doesn't have any say over that. They're there doing their job. Be grateful. Provide positive feedback. Write things down on a daily basis and just stop and pay attention to what's positive, because to a large degree, we are what we focus on. So if we're looking at all the conflict, we're looking at all the confusion, we're looking at all the anger, then yes, that's probably what we're mostly going to be experiencing and reflecting. So let's balance that and try to be grateful. And also help by getting social support, calling friends, interacting with people. We may have to have changed the way we interact, but we don't have to remain isolated. We just have to change. We have to adapt. Meditate. Take some time to slow down. I don't know about you, but things have not slowed down for me during this process.
Nope.
We're doing more with less. There's more chaos. So finding time to meditate, to do mindful prayer, do other things that just allow us as individuals, and the research shows it helps. Again, takes our anxiety down, takes our anger down, and allows us to extend that to other people as well.
We also talk about eating well, sleeping well, learn something new. Is that another thing? I mean, some of us aren't sleeping as well, and we're feeling more tired than normal. I joke about people gaining the COVID-19, maybe just myself, because you're just kind of eating more. I anecdotally know people are drinking more alcohol as well, maybe because they don't have to get up as early, or like, why not? Everything's a mess. Let's do that anyway. So I guess, there are some pitfalls here. So these last ones here are probably really important for us.
Absolutely. This is where having the ability to really discipline ourselves is important, because we don't have some of the structure that was built in before. So, we have what I refer to as the COVID diet. Everybody's grabbing things that are simple, easy, and not the best for us. But again, let's go back to our grandparents' advice. Eat well, particularly have proteins and complex carbohydrates. Those are things that our body knows how to really use in these times of stress. So show some discipline there. Now, does it have to be the way it was before? No. So don't beat yourself up over it. Just work toward it like you would exercise. You don't have to become an ultra marathon runner. Just move a little bit more than you did the day before each day. Try to eat a little bit more, a little bit better than you did the day before, a little bit more of the food that you should. Sleep well. Try to keep a good, stable sleep-wake cycle. And exercise and eating well will help with that. I don't know about you, but I find when I don't exercise and when I don't eat well, I usually pay for it in my sleep. And when I don't sleep well, I pay for it in my attitude the next day. And then I tend to turn to food or other things that I shouldn't to control my stress. So you can see how these things all interact together.
Some really good advice. Now, MTN has launched the Rebound Montana Facebook group, a statewide resource to help keep you and your family stay informed and help you navigate these uncertain times due to coronavirus. We'll also keep you updated about how well relief programs are working and how Montana businesses are stepping up and rebounding from this entire pandemic. Before we go this morning, we did want to share with you, MTN News has created a statewide fund to provide safety net funding for rural and tribal communities that have been adversely affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. The Rebound Montana Relief Fund. It's a partnership between MTN, AMB West Philanthropies, and the Montana Community Foundation. If you can help, please go to the Montana Community Foundation website at mtcf.org. That is where you can access the various funds that have been set up for this cause. And MTN and AMB West Philanthropies will match the first $150,000 donated to the Montana COVID-19 Relief Fund. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on the Rebound Montana. We hope you have a great day, and remember, we will get through this.